Homelessness is worsening over time.
If you don't have a home, you really can't focus on other parts of your life.
Our children are our future because we are the present.
You're one really bad day away from being homeless.
Folks that you walk past on the street, they're somebody's family member.
Housing, education, people. Those are game changers. We have the money, the intellect, the passion. We can do this.
Hi, my name is Hannon, and I'm the host of The Bells I Hear, an audio and video podcast that aims to raise awareness about the homelessness crisis in New York City and the complexity surrounding the issue. Thanks so much for tuning in. So today we have Gabriela Cyan joining us. She is the Director of Research for Education and Policy for the National Women's Shelter Network and has previously held a similar position at the Lotus House, serving women and children in need. Hi, Gabriela. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today.
Yeah. So we can dive right in. What initially drew you to, this field of work and policy that you're doing?
Yeah, so honestly, I wouldn't say it was just sheer luck. My background is not necessarily in homelessness. I studied international relations. I will say that, I always did have a focus on human rights, and particularly women and children were always an interest to me. Those are usually like the issue areas that I focused on. However, after I graduated grad school, it was 2020. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and I moved back home to Miami. And I happened to come across this position at the Lotus House Women's Shelter, like you mentioned earlier, and they actually are the largest women's shelter in the country. So Lotus House serves 525 women and children nightly. And they, at the time, were looking for a research coordinator. And the position really kind of encompassed everything that I was looking for. It allowed me to implement my academic skills as well as like my passion, to be working on like a meaningful mission that was advancing the rights and needs of women and children. And I just literally fell in love with the organization, their mission, and the cause. And that's how I ended up working in this field.
Yeah. And it seems like you've I felt connected to, the mission of serving women and children in need. And what also drew you to, moving on to National Women's Shelter Network and yeah.
So a little background, the Lotus House founded the National Women's Shelter Network, right? So during my time at Lotus House, part of the work that I was doing was help build the network. We started off doing research of shelters all around the country and then narrowing those down to women's shelters. And as the network continued to grow, it was decided that it became too large to be an initiative of the Lotus House Women's Shelter. So then the National Women's Shelter Network decided to become its own organization. And with that, it was decided that the research and policy would be done through the NWSN on a national level.
Okay.
So, it was a easy, seamless transition. Really, I didn't really double guess it or think about it twice. I got to take all the skills that I learned at Lotus House. And I was there in the shelter working. So a little background, the Lotus House founded the National Women's Shelter Network, right? So during my time at Lotus House, part of the work that I was doing was help build the network. We started off doing research of shelters all around the country and then narrowing those down to women's shelters. And as the network continued to grow and learning about the issues and the needs of our women and children. And then now I was able to bring all of my knowledge to a larger platform, right? And hopefully create greater change for the shelters that are serving our women and kids and the women and kids themselves.
Oh yeah, that's really amazing. I had no idea that it stemmed from Lotus House. So you were there at the beginning of its inception. Do you know why, what sort of sparked the initiative at first from Lotus House?
Yeah, definitely. So our Lotus House founder, Constance Collins, who is also the founder of the National Women's Shelter Network, she came up with the idea, or just really, especially during the pandemic, it was really obvious that there wasn't a hub for shelters to connect, right? There wasn't a place where they can reach out to each other and discuss best practices. And the pandemic was such an unknown time in everyone's lives, right? But what happens in a shelter when you have over 500 people living in it on a daily basis and everyone is
Yeah.
scared and no one knows what to do, right? So I think that this really prompted it. I think it was an idea that she had already had in mind, but then the pandemic really just kind of exacerbated and highlighted that there wasn't a place for shelters to connect with each other. And so we really hit the ground running and started doing our research and started reaching out to shelters. And I mean, it was a few years in the making, right? Especially, you're just cold calling shelters, letting them know about this crazy idea that you want to do.
Yeah.
And Constance and our now director Gretel, they hit the road, and for the last few years, every so often they do road trips and they go visit shelters in person to explain what the network is, the benefits of joining the network, and we've expanded it to over 400 members now. I mean, we continue to grow, but I think it's been a beautiful resource for shelters. I mean, we live in a big country and it's very spread out, and sometimes we have shelters where they're the only one in their town or in their city, and they're the only ones that serve a particular population. So I know that everyone has been looking for that community, and the NWSN has been able to make that happen.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. It's like she saw uh, a gap and sort of like filled it with NWSN and like I don't know, providing sort of this space that like shelters can go to for questions that they have. Because it's like everyone's doing the same amazing things, but it's like maybe banding together, working together to, yeah, just sort of create like a system that works. So it's
Yeah,
really,
exactly. Yeah, and we get to share best practices, resources,
yeah,
and sometimes just kind of be a support for each other, right?
right. It's very important.
Yeah.
So you've been heavily involved in shaping NWSN's public policy initiatives. What are some of the policy changes that you think need immediate attention to prevent and address homelessness effectively?
I could be here all day, but I'll leave you with like top three that come to mind, and really, number one is we need affordable housing, and I'm speaking actual affordable housing for our extremely low income population. Uh, you know, we have seen such a surge and an increase of people experiencing homelessness for the first time because of evictions, rents are going up hundreds of dollars, and there's people who are on fixed incomes who can't afford that, right? There's senior citizens who can't afford to live on their own anymore because their social security can't pay for the rent increase. It's been such a rise and of people experiencing homelessness because they literally just can't afford to live in their homes. And then we also have like single mothers who may be struggling to make ends meet, right? Because they have kids they need to feed, and rent is getting so expensive and they can't afford it. So I would say definitely affordable housing. I mean, I think right now the average rent across the country is higher than someone who brings home like a minimum wage monthly check. So that would be number one. Secondly, we need increased funding towards trauma-informed shelters and safe havens. Shelters are literally first stop where people go when they're seeking refuge, right? And they are underfunded and under-resourced and working at capacity. And we hear this all the time from our members. And honestly, at Lotus House, we experience it every day where we have to turn people away at the door
Wow.
because we don't have the capacity to house any more people. So we definitely need increased funding for our shelters across the country. And lastly, we need childcare. We need affordable childcare for our mothers who literally have to decide between taking care of their kids and working,
Yeah.
right? So many of our women who are experiencing homelessness, who have children, are their children's sole providers. And without a safe space where they can leave their kids, they are unable to work. And if you can't work, you're not receiving an income. If you're not receiving an income, you can't find housing, right? So it's all just kind of a cycle,
Yeah.
and a cycle that we need to break. But I do think that this could help our mothers get back on their feet, and so they're able to provide for their family and achieve like long-term financial stability.
Wow. Yeah, you raised all very important points, things that would be long term and also short term solutions. I guess so. How does NWSN work with lawmakers and legislators to like push this policy out and sort of get it out there?
Oh, good question. Because so the last year, so we officially became incorporated last year, January 2024, and ever since then we have hit the ground running on Capitol Hill. Uh, we spent a year doing advocacy work uh, to try and introduce a bill, which was currently introduced last month. It is our bill. It is called the Women's and Family Protection Act, requesting an increase in funding for women's shelters and safe haven programs. But we have spent the last year knocking on doors,
Yeah.
visiting representatives and senator offices. We hosted our conference this past January 2 in January 2025, where we had a Capitol Hill Day at the end of it, and we had our shelters participate, and then they were able to reach out to their representatives and schedule meetings and let them know what's happening in their cities, what they need as first responders, and just informing them also about the act, about our bill. So we are happy to announce that this past May, the Women's and Family Protection Act was introduced in the House by Representative Jimenez and Representative Torres from New York, actually. So now the work continues, right? So now we are continuing to advocate on the Senate side to find sponsors.
Yeah.
But we're incredibly grateful to see the progress that we've made in just a short time frame. We're so new and it's only been a year.
Right.
So I think that just shows all the hard work that's been put into this.
Yeah, that's really amazing to hear. Yeah, all the effort is like paying off. And I guess on the opposite end of that, like, I guess what are some of the barriers and challenges that, you guys have faced in sort of introducing these different policies to, lawmakers, legislators?
Yeah, so I think we always come in just trying to educate on the crisis. I think homelessness has always had a sort of stigma or misconceptions, and it's not necessarily something that's like taught in school or spoken about, right? So I think, we always come in with a mindset of like just trying to educate on like what's happening on the ground, what are the causes for women and children experiencing homelessness. Also, we just would love to emphasize that we are not seeking to remove funding from other sources. We just want to expand the pie. We believe that we need both housing and shelter to end homelessness, right? It's not one or the other. So, I think that that's always a question that's there. Like, where's the funding coming from? And, our intention is not to decrease anyone else's funding. We just want to expand the pie, as we say.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, both are just as important. So, when you're sort of crafting and developing policy, how do you make sure that you sort of center lived experiences and make sure that that is like integrated into your work?
Yeah, so with the NWSN in particular, we have an advisory board that's composed of women with lived experience. All the women on the advisory board are alum of one of our shelter members, and they are highly involved in the work that we do. So, a little background, the Lotus House founded the National Women's Shelter Network, right? So, during my time at Lotus House, part of the work that I was doing was help build the network. We started off doing research of shelters all around the country and then narrowing those down to women's shelters. And as the network continued to grow, and everything, all of our policy, all of our projects, all of our initiatives, we have our women and children in mind. Even with Lotus House, for instance, like 35% of their staff are alumni of the program. And these are individuals that we are always requesting their participation in, whether those are meetings on the Hill, meetings with federal agencies, just in-house meetings where we discuss what works best, what has worked best for their families, their experiences in shelters, and their needs, right? Who better to tell us about the solutions and what they needed in the moment that they were living something than the people who have lived it, right? So we always go back to our alum for guidance, and their input is invaluable to our work.
Right. They're at the center. Yeah. So, you helped the National Women's Shelter Network develop the first ever National Gaps in Need survey. Could you, tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, that was an idea that came up to as we were building the network, so very on in our early days. And that was really to be able to gather data from our shelters, the people who are living this every day, and asking them directly, what is it that you need? What is it that you're experiencing? What are the gaps and needs that you see? What are the root causes? Like, what are the causes of homelessness for the people that you're serving? And I think it's a great way to be able to educate our lawmakers and show them, like, this is what the people are saying, right? These are the people who are serving individuals every day. They're living this. They're like essentially our first responders to this crisis, and this is what they're saying. And doing something like this kind of helps you see the trends. And like what we notice is that most people are saying the same things.
Yeah.
Increased funding is a huge one that most shelters feel like they need. More resources, more mental health care for the populations they're serving. And so it really, most of the feedback we got was kind of unanimous across the board. Like the majority of shelters were reiterating the same thing.
Do you think that sort of launching this survey, like getting all this data across a variety of different shelters and a variety of different people, women, children, like, do you think that lawmakers have been more receptive to hearing you guys out, just seeing all of this data and information?
Yeah, I believe so. I think something that we've been hearing a lot is that there really haven't been advocates for shelters on the Hill. So I do think that there has been a sort of disconnect about what's actually happening on the ground versus what maybe on the national level or on the legislative level is believed to be needed, or the solutions, right? So, I mean, we do hear constantly, one, that there really haven't been advocates for shelters, so no one really knows or understands what's happening. And we've essentially have kind of been the first ones to bring that to the table. And, with 400 members in our network, I mean, we do hope to do a second version of the gaps in needs. That first one was very early on.
Yeah.
And then now, with more members, we hope to gather more data.
Yeah.
We've refined our questionnaire. So hopefully we'll be coming out with some sort of update in the next year. But I do think that it adds weight to what we advocate for.
Yeah. How do you, I know you just said that you guys would like refine your questionnaire. How do you sort of come up with those questions and decide which ones to ask?
So basically, experience. The experience that we've brought from, particularly our founder and executive director. She founded Lotus House 20 years ago. And she's no longer the executive of Lotus House, but she brings 20 years of hands-on knowledge of running a shelter to being able to determine these questions. And then just conversations that we've had with our shelters, and then from their visits,
Yeah.
the road trips, visiting the shelters, speaking with their directors and their staff. So all of those experiences we bring together, and we create the Gaps in Need survey.
Okay, amazing. Was there anything, I know you said that there were a lot of like trends and commonalities among the responses, but was there anything that sort of surprised you, or like maybe you didn't realize like, wait, this is like a need that we need to address?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily know if surprise. I think it just like kind of helped it clarify that it's not just us. Like
Yeah.
it's not just our Lotus House thinking these things or experiencing these things. It's like the
Yeah.
shelters in different communities, rural, urban, West Coast, East Coast, Mid. Everyone is just kind of going through the same thing. And then it's just and particularly like the root causes of homelessness too. And it's like the same that you see across the board for women and children for the most part.
Yeah.
Gender-based violence is a main cause of homelessness, right? And so many of our individuals have histories of trauma and violence, and that's something that we saw pretty uniformly in our results and our data. So I think it just kind of solidified what we already knew.
Okay. And how has it approached, your public policy work?
Yeah, I think it helps us better tailor our solutions and our asks to align with those needs, with what shelters are saying would better help them advance their mission to helping their communities.
Yeah. Okay. Could you talk a little bit about trauma-informed policy?
Yeah. So we are huge advocates of this. We believe that trauma-informed policy helps create environments that are essential to addressing the very specific needs of individuals experiencing homelessness. It acknowledges the impact of trauma on individuals and communities. Like I just mentioned, so many of the women and children that we see who experience homelessness have vast histories of violence and abuse and poverty. And one size fits all approach just doesn't work.
Right.
What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the next. And it's been proven that providing trauma-informed wraparound supportive services helps people get out of homelessness, and helps end homelessness, and it can help end generational cycles of homelessness. So it's just so important to be able to acknowledge that history to help them heal and move forward in their lives.
Right. Right. Because there is, it's definitely more complex than we can probably ever imagine, and it's important to like consider that, when you're, advocating for them, obviously you want to understand like their story, their background, their experiences. So yeah, that
Exactly. And so many times we see it where a mother and a child come in, and that mother probably experienced homelessness when they were a child with her own parents, right? Or maybe were part of the foster care system, or just you see your sort of like pattern in the instability when you're a child, and then how that just kind of transcends into adulthood. And we think addressing that is so important to the mission.
yeah, yeah, it definitely is. So, obviously, like working in this field can be emotionally demanding. How do you kind of remain resilient and like practice self-care as you immerse yourself in trauma research and, writing policy?
Yeah, I think that requires just a variety of approaches. I think like, sometimes in the moment when I am feeling maybe overwhelmed. So at Lotus House, we used to do I say used to because now I'm in NWSN, they still do it. But there was a mindfulness training that's provided to their employees. So, sometimes I kind of still use some of those pointers to just kind of take a moment when I'm feeling overwhelmed, whether I'm working or, hearing stories.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in like the larger scheme of things, uh, there's a little bit in me that the fact that I'm part of trying to be part of the solution, I think kind of eases my mind. I mean, I think it's difficult to know that the stories and some of the things that individuals go through, and when they feel like they're not being listened to, and like all we can do is just kind of uh, try and push forward and try and help as much as we can and like make a little bit of a difference. So I think knowing that we're moving an agenda forward that can make a real difference in
Yeah.
people's lives um, just kind of keeps you going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that literally, yeah, just like wanting to see the change happen. And like even you guys sort of, like your policies literally like making it to you know, like government officials, and like you're about to like possibly, get funding and get more resources to help provide services to people that are in need of shelter. So it's like you're seeing those little moments of progress that, yeah, are making a difference and are going to continue making a difference. So,
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, so it gets hard when you feel like you're stuck, and then seeing these little, and, even just like the small milestones,
yeah,
lead to a larger outcome, right? It's just like part of the process and the journey. But we're doing the best we can with what we have.
yeah. And you guys are doing amazing. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Do you have any sort of final words or thoughts for our audience?
I want to say, I think just remembering that we're all human, I think is so important. Particularly like in this field, as I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, it just brings so many misconceptions and perceptions of individuals, and I think just taking a little bit of time to learn about each other, and realizing that everyone has a history,
Yeah.
and what could have happened to someone to get them where they are, right?
Yeah.
And then just like giving grace, like we're all human, and it's just so important to like try and help each other in our communities, and just be there for one another, especially in these trying times.
Yes, 100% showing up for one another. So important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on today, Gabriela. Yeah, it's amazing the work that you guys are doing at Lotus House and NWSN. And the work that you were doing as well and your contributions to getting funding and resources for people that need it. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me, and I'm incredibly proud to be part of this organization and this initiative. And we're so excited to see what's next and how we'll keep growing and hopefully bringing about change.
Yes, 100%. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. The episode was hosted by me, Hannah Nabraha, produced by Baron Noble Mello. The audio and video editing was done by Ilona Tuominen, and the music is courtesy of Diego Urquela. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to The Bells I Hear and follow us on social media at The Bells I Hear to find more content and to spread the word. Thanks again. Till next time.